Everyone who has never made a comic before will have the exact same experience at some point during the creation process. This is harder than I thought it would be. There are 3 problems that every single creator will come up against, and I have 3 apps that will provide 3 solutions. Those 3 problems are remembering important things, managing tasks, and prioritizing the most impactful task. And we're going to start with the first problem, and the app to use for that is Todoist. Oh yeah, and all 3 of these apps are completely free to use. Todoist is essentially an app where you will write down your to-do list and you'll tick them off one by one. The real power of this app is that if you're out and about, or you're on the toilet, or you're on public transport and you think of something that you need to do, you just open up the app and write it down for later. Perhaps you're a writer and you really need to send an email to the artist about the current pages that they're working on. So you'd note it down in Todoist as soon as you think of it, because you'll definitely forget to do it later. You can set up different boards and itemize your checklists based on different projects, or you can just throw them all in one place and organize it later. I'm in the latter camp where I just sort of put everything into one single list, and then by the time that I get home or at the end of that day, I'll take all those things and I'll put them onto the next app, which is the Google Calendar. You may already use the Google Calendar because it's quite a common app, but let me show you how useful it can really be when managing your tasks. I've got a blank calendar here, and through the power of editing, I'm going to lay out my week. By color coding each of my tasks, it helps me separate my projects visually, and it just looks nice, which always helps. You'll automatically get notified on your phone 15 minutes before your task is due to start. One of the things that I think they've changed is that the default way that they did this was they would notify your phone and send you an email, and that would just end up clogging your emails, but I think they've removed that. If you do get annoying email notifications, you can simply click into your event and change it here. I do everything as events because the tasks don't allow you to drag it across various times in the day. If I add this as a task, it's only this long and I can't drag it. So I don't use tasks for that reason, but do what works for you. I'll always have at least a month's worth of stuff in the calendar so that I know what I'm doing month to month. And that means I can have more headspace for creative things. As David Allen said, your mind is for having ideas, not for holding them. So get your ideas and your tasks from your head onto your calendar. And the app that I found most useful for when I'm prioritizing the most impactful tasks is the final one in this video, and that is Notion. Notion is like the Swiss Army knife of these sorts of apps, although there is a downside that I'll get to later on. There's no need to go for the paid one unless you're managing a big team and they all have Notion accounts as well. If you feel that's necessary for you, then go for it, but I think for like 99% of us, the free one is absolutely fine. Now, I'm not going to pretend that I'm an expert in Notion because there's just so much that you can do with it. Thomas Frank has an entire YouTube channel which is full of tips and tricks for how to use Notion, so go check his videos out if you ever get stuck. Here's a rough example of how you can use Notion to organize your projects, both as a writer and an artist. This is what I came up with, and although it needs a little bit of tweaking here and there, it's helped me out a lot. I'm going to speed this up and fill this out so you can see what it looks like in action. You can make pages within pages so you can keep everything organized, which is amazing. This helps me keep track of individual chapters of my comic so I know what I've done as well as what needs doing. My character profiles is a good reference point so I can check that my characters are consistent as I'm writing and drawing. And if I were working with an artist, then I can simply copy this and email it to them or add it in as part of the script. The main page is relatively simple, but this is the area that I use daily. I'll have tasks that make up the bulk of my week, which I've basically copied over from my Google Calendar, and my daily highlight is a really useful technique when you're working on a long-term project. Basically, you write down the one thing that will have the most impact on your goals. So it might be that penciling a difficult page could be the most impactful thing you can do, or maybe it's writing up some social media posts for marketing your comic, or redrafting a specific chapter of your script. If you can do your daily highlight, then anything else you do on top of that is a nice bonus. It's a great way to keep you moving forward without burning out. Then I have my daily schedule on the right where I can roughly plan out how much time I'm going to be blocking out for the various things I'm going to do. So I'll make a social media post on my lunch break and do some pencils in the evening, which is also my daily highlight. If I get that done, then I'll write a draft script for a YouTube video. Obviously, if you're lucky enough to be full-time, then you can fill out more space, but most of us have day jobs, hence why there's a big old gap in the middle here. And finally, I have a little journal here where I can just make notes or vent my frustrations. I find that writing things down really helps me put things in perspective and really understand what I'm thinking and how I'm feeling. So this has helped me when Mr. Doubt and Mrs. Anxiety come knocking at the door. I definitely recommend that you use all 3 of these just to see how you vibe with them. You don't have to use all three, and there are other similar apps available, but these are the three that I use pretty much on a daily basis. I'm looking at creating a full-on task manager within Notion, similar to what I've shown in this video, for comic creators, and hopefully that will be available next year. Because the main downside of Notion is that it's quite a steep learning curve and it can take a while to figure out how it all works, but if you've got a planner in place, then that can be a game changer. So Todoist just follows little tasks that you think of spontaneously, where you just note them down before you forget them. Google Calendar is for managing your time, and Notion is all about having everything in one place. Another great thing that Notion can do is help you track your budget, which can get really out of hand if you don't plan it properly. And in this video, I reveal how much a comic can cost you. If you've never made a comic before and you're looking to hire people to help you make it, this is a must watch.